That's actually a perfect transition to get into the video you guys recorded, because so basically, for people who don't know, we can link that below. I had my I think pretty comprehensive video on genetics maybe a month ago now, and then I sent it to you, and obviously I referenced the 3DMJ guys quite a bit. And you guys put out I wouldn't call it a response video necessarily, but you talked about it and put out a video on genetics just recently. And in that, I say it's a good transition, because you talked about how, in a way, you almost have to be a dreamer, and you do kind of placebo yourself. And that's something that I have had mixed thoughts on over the years, because part of me is, I do openly say, I think a lot of bodybuilders are kind of delusional in certain ways, but I also wouldn't want to take that from somebody, because one, you don't know if they're wrong necessarily. And two, in a way, it's almost like, it's like, would you rather be, and I'm not saying this of bodybuilders, but just as a general life thing, if somebody said, well, you could be dumb and really happy, or smart and miserable, it's like, man, I'd probably rather be dumb and really happy. And it's
Oh,
so, and if you could almost have this delusion, but it makes you excited to do this thing all the time, maybe that's better.
man, I have a few friends that they legit will sit there and laugh at the most like slapstick type of like beat, and I'm like, man, I wish I could be you sometimes, man. I love these. I love these guys. So they have their own perks and their own talents, but that's the one thing I'm like me picking a movie. It's like I have to like I overanalyze like what I'm going to spend these 90 minutes on. Like,
Yeah, sure.
um, but yeah, I think there's because I get where you're coming from too with it's like, hey, this is about as good as you're going to get at this. Go do other things with yourself.
Hmm.
Yeah, like sort of
Potentially.
deal.
Yeah.
Or like it's like don't be afraid of doing other things,
Yeah.
like that sort of deal. Um, and I guess to me, like when it comes to bodybuilding, like I've working on one thing that I'm really trying to master makes me understand the world at large like so much better. Like there's just lessons that I'm always pulling from bodybuilding that I'm like, this is you when it comes to this other thing in your life, like same errors, like
Hmm.
this is how you interact with your environment. um so there's a lot of that I get from the bodybuilding. And the one thing is for sure is that there's only so many things you can do to make yourself better. It's like, hey, get your sleep, get your food in, you know, train, which I do think is you progress, if anything, your volume is going up at the same time it's going down. Like I can argue that right now on a per muscle group basis, I'm doing more volume than ever, but that's just because the exercises are better fits. I'm much more focused. All these things that you really can't necessarily even like measure.
Hmm.
But like back then, I go back like 15 years, and I have videos of myself lifting 15 years ago. It's like, yeah, you're doing a lot of the sets, bro, but like they're all over the place.
Hmm.
Like you're not hitting as many bullseyes every training session. So the amount of time that you spend on this, like I think in the off season, I'll probably have to go down to 4 days a week simply because the amount of good work I'm doing is just going to require that. Which so it opens up your time, because you know exactly at a certain point you should know like what gets the needle moving. And this is one thing Kaz has said, and I'm like, oh, this hits bodybuilding. Like more people need to hear this. Um, bodybuilding is a sport of over recovery.
Okay.
And because everyone wants to do something proactive, and it's like, well, yeah, you can, but a lot of that stuff is going to be outside the gym. It's like managing your stress, it's like getting your sleep, and the food, like that sort of deal. And if I do that, I still have a lot of time to do the other things I want to do. And the best part is that since I'm trying to master this and I've gotten pretty far in this, like it just changes my perspective when it comes to any other side hobby that I take up, where like it's like I'm like we all get those noobs in regards to like trainees, and it's like this is what I think you should be, but you're over here and distracted. And like so I put myself in that position, and I'm like, okay, I'm a noob entering this world. Like, what should I be focusing on? Like, how should I, tackle the situation that's in front of me? Um, so yeah, I think in a way it's more important to me than ever, the bodybuilding. But in regards to like the time I spent on it, it's like actually kind of condensed, and all the things that maybe do leak out and impact other parts of my life, like they're net positives, like the stress management, the
Yep.
sleep. I don't think if I didn't train, like I would be that focused on those things as much as I am now if it wasn't for bodybuilding.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. A couple points on that. I mean, one, definitely it seems like the most productive people on average are also doing a lot of other things like working out and whatnot. So I mean, I can't tell you how many assistants I've had over the years, or people that, they're not doing that much. And I don't have time to work out. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry. I guess me with two businesses and all these other things, I have all this time, but you don't have time with your, 30 hours per week of your job. So a lot of times I find people, obviously there's excuses there, but I make a ton of analogies. I always think about things like that. And half of my analogies are to fitness stuff, and it's just very relatable. And to be clear, I'm not saying, you just at the start of the conversation there said that you were like, well, if you've hit this kind of peak, just do something else. Just to clarify, I think that's a viable option for people to do. I'm not saying that's what anybody should do, especially I've said this to Steve Hall too. Like you, Steve Hall, this is your life and you're at a peak level of it among most people. So I would not say that you guys should, go do something else. I mean, you're at, if you think about the top of your hierarchy, essentially, right? I mean, not that you're the best bodybuilder, but among a lot of people, you're top. And to leave and do, whatever, jujitsu, well, now you're starting at the bottom. Maybe you do that as a side hobby or something. But I think it's great to be able to have a couple areas of your life where you can really refine and become expert in. You don't want to be just kind of mediocre at everything. I kind of keep that as my hobbies. This is why some people say, oh, you should try this or that. It's like, look, I think out a lot of things. And to me, if I'm going to spend a lot of time doing something, I want to make sure that it's something, one, I want to be dedicated to, but two, that I'm going to be doing for a long time. And the other stuff can stay as a hobby. But I think it's cool to have a few things you're kind of a master at.
Yeah, yeah. Because I know a lot of young bodybuilders who are still trying to climb up. And I consider anyone who's a body recomp enthusiast, you're a bodybuilder. At the end, like bodybuilders are very possessive about that term. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you haven't gone on stage. It's like that's bullshit, bro. Like that's not no. A quick point, and I came to this realization that yeah, bodybuilding is the most popular sport in the world. What do you think about it?
If you think like gym goer and things like that, like,
Like everyone wants to do something with their like 'cause that's what bodybuilding is. It's like I want to change my body composition.
right.
So that's all it is. And yeah, we all have slightly different preferences, but we also have like different classes and
But I think that
again,
also is what makes it hard for people. People, there's the classic quote, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And we should have gratitude for things. But at the end of the day, I think that's what makes it harder in a sense, because like, let's say you play tennis, even if you aren't necessarily built for tennis, just by virtue of the fact that most people don't play tennis, you could become better than 99% of the population pretty easily. Again, not among tennis players, but of everybody. That's number one. Number two, people don't see your skill in most sports. They're not walking around seeing, oh, wow, I can tell he's a really good whatever player. With bodybuilding or fitness, everybody is looking at everybody all the time, right? It affects your day to day life, it affects how people interact with you. And so there's this huge pool. So I agree.